They say good design is obvious, but great design is transparent. We're pursuing perfect hotel design wherever we can find it. That means speaking to the brightest minds in the hospitality industry. This is the Hotel Design Podcast.
Hey everyone, Glenn here. Listen, these days it's all about LVT, right? Luxury vinyl tile. It's the number one choice in guest rooms for a lot of reasons, but of course, cleanliness and good air quality, particularly now because there's such a heightened emphasis on being clean. Now, my good friends over at Porcelanosa, they've been offering link floor for a really long time now, and it's a high quality LVT solution with the most incredible sound absorption I've ever not heard, right? So you got the cleanliness aspect, you got the sound absorption aspect. Now, to prove that, I had a chance to visit the architectural lab called Intersects in York, Pennsylvania, and I witnessed it myself. Porcelanosa, they've done the research to keep a guest rooms quiet. Plus, you'll have the assurance of passing relevant building codes and creating an environment of cleanliness you know is so important. Please go to porcelanosa.com and learn more. Then click on that link floor tab or drop us a line over here, info@thehoteldesignpodcast.com. That's info@hoteldesignpodcast.com. Let them know Glenn sent you. Thanks. Hey everybody, Glenn Haussman here with another exciting episode of the Hotel Design Podcast. So excited that we brought back this series, and so far we've been talking about a lot of amazing professionals that are doing projects now, but not really the future. And that's where today's conversation is going to be coming in. We're going to talk a little bit about the future over there, and that's why we've got Ron Swidler, Chief Innovation Officer of the Gettys Group Companies. Ron, it is so great to see you today, man. We have not had a conversation in way too long. You've been busy trying to reinvent the future of hospitality. Well, I feel like a lot of hoteliers are out there just trying to go back to the way things used to be. As we get started here, what are you thinking right now as we're recording this interview in October 2021?
Well, Glenn, great to see you. Thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure. You're absolutely right. I think what we're seeing is an opportunity to look ahead. And now we shouldn't forget the lessons learned from the past, but wow, if we come out of this pandemic and go back to the way things were, instead of seeing this as an opportunity for some reinvention, some reimagination, some rejuvenation, what a missed opportunity, right?
Right. And let me just stop you right there, although it does seem like you took a natural pause there, Ron. We've been talking a lot about now is the time to do everything from scratch, reinvent it. It's the great reset, as we've been saying. You have a chance to try new things. You have a chance to fail without judgment. And I think a lot of this is trying to push forward the boundaries of what could be when it comes to the future of the hospitality industry. So when you put together this group on how to create what you're looking about with the Hotel of Tomorrow, what was the motivation for it? What were you thinking?
So, Glenn. So, we're looking at the future of our industry as a group, because honestly, the challenges that we're facing as an industry are greater than those that can be solved alone, right? We've had a tendency within our company and within our clients' companies to solve problems one project at a time or one brand at a time. This is an opportunity to take the conversation up to the level of our entire industry, right?
Right. So I love that, Ron, because what you're really doing is that you're reinventing not just how hotels are done, but the thought process that goes into creating these hotels. And it's true. A lot of times it's not that the hospitality industry professionals are myopic. It's just that they're hyper focused on what they're doing right now. And sometimes instead of taking those lessons and applying them, they go and learn all new lessons dependent on what that specific project is all about. Does that sound like an accurate assessment?
Yeah, that's a completely accurate assessment, Glenn. And, if you go back to the view of you and I together side by side, I'll just bring something to your attention for a second, which is your backdrop is a concept that was developed out of last year's Hotel of Tomorrow project.
Right.
Thank you. And that's called outside in, inside out. And the basic idea was, how do we activate spaces within hotels to bring some of the benefits of being outside? So we know from our research, and I should tell you, the Hotel of Tomorrow project is also supported by academic institutions and universities around the world, and they bring us compelling data about the changing shift in consumer expectations. And one of the things we know is that people recover from stress 60% faster outdoors.
Right.
It's an interesting statistic, right? What it really means is that if you're in nature, we are human animals after all, there's a sense of peace and calm. There's a sense of being able to calm down and relax. Now, how can we achieve something similar to that within the built environment? And look, there are so many spaces within hotels that have unfortunately been less active over the course of the past year and a half. And we also know that air quality is increasingly important, that programmable lighting is becoming more affordable and available, that large format LED displays are becoming more affordable and available. Well, you have to wait a long time for them to get here from Asia. but the reality is that there's an opportunity to bring some of the benefits of being outside inside. And the other thing we know is more people want to spend time outside.
Right.
So how are we taking spaces outside the hotel, whether it's parking spots that were in front of our restaurant and turning them into outdoor dining, or it's that space out back that could be a boardroom space and a tent outside because of the concerns about clean air quality. So
what you're talking about here is unpaving the parking lot and turning it back into paradise, as to reverse that old school.
You didn't sing that. I thought maybe
no, because I respect our listeners and viewers there, Ron, and I want them to stick around for the rest of this show. But what you're really talking about is the whole notion of taking biophilic design, what you said, taking the outside and bringing it inside. And it is proven. And as a matter of fact, Ron, in hospitals that focus on this particular type of design, people feel better quicker and are discharged faster. In offices, people are engaged in the workplace. They don't tire as easily, and they get more work done because it's an environment that's suitable for human beings living. Now, in the hotel industry, that also makes perfect sense to me, Ron, because what we're talking about here is giving people what they want, how we respond to nature. So what are some of the ideas in the hotel of tomorrow to really bring that in a meaningful way? And if we're to use some word pictures and look at pictures, it really looks like bringing the whole idea of gardens into the internal atmosphere.
Yeah, Glenn. So there are several different technologies that are incorporated into that image that was behind you there. Let me just point out a few of them, because I think that these are leading indicators of where the industry might go. Okay, I mentioned briefly programmable LED lighting. You know that we now can set, if LEDs are connected to a computer, we can set a given location and time and convey the lighting in that same color range and brightness. So we can shift the lighting within a space throughout the course of the day to match what might be outside. You take a country like Finland or any of the Nordic countries where they're in darkness at one point, 24 hours for the day, and they'll tell you how important it is for their own mental well-being to have light environments. So we know these light environments have effect on your well-being.
I learned that lesson by watching the movie Insomnia, Christopher Nolan's first major
I never saw that
film. You really should. It's really scary. It takes place in 24 hours daylight in northern Alaska. Lots of craziness ensues. But back to what you were saying there, Ron.
No, that's okay. So programmable lighting is part of what we want to make sure that we're thinking about going forward. We also have large format LED displays. Now, what we do with these screens in our hotels, Glenn, look, too often we step into a hotel and we see a television broadcast being shown on those television screens in public areas of hotels. And those are a distraction to a lot of people. If we could instead use those same video monitors or even larger format video monitors to show nature, it's kind of like if you have Apple TV at home and you go to the pause screen, there are beautiful images of beautiful locations around the world that are slowly moving. Look, Apple was smart enough to recognize that that's the kind of thing that's a form of passive entertainment that allows you to not be distracted necessarily. And what we've found is that if someone is in an environment where there is passive entertainment, where there's just enough motion and engagement, like there would be in nature, for example, with birds chirping or the wind blowing the leaves around, that doesn't distract you from what you're focusing on. It actually allows you to focus more carefully on the single thing that you're looking at.
Better than having that 24-hour news station that I may or may not agree with politically and put me into a negative mindset. It reminds me of when you go to the big box electronic retailer and they're trying to show off those screens, right? They always have incredible nature videos on there because there's no better way to get across the messaging of that high quality than by matching it to the way that people want to live. And that's through getting closer to nature, even in the built environment.
That's exactly right. So we also have advanced technologies around preserving trees and plants that look real because they once were real. We can also integrate not only lightscapes, as I referred to, but soundscapes as well. I bet you, Glenn, you have multiple speakers in your house, not only because you are an audiophile, but because Bluetooth speakers are now quite affordable.
That's right.
So we can create environments within our hotels that are much more like, and I'm going to date myself now. Do you remember when the movie Earthquake came out in Sense-Around?
No, I'm way too young for that. Oh my God, absolutely. That was that was pretty awesome. But really, it's like extending the dialogue with the users and taking them to that next level. And I think honestly, what I think overlays most with what you're talking about here is two things that Disney has done well. They created the world of Pandora at the Animal Kingdom Park, which creates a lot of artificial life forms in terms of plants and stuff like that, but feels real to create a more of a science fiction environment. But I can see how you can turn that into something inside that's more earthly bound. When we talk about the screens, they've got that new Space 220 restaurant. They're building that Star Wars hotel. I feel like it could utilize great screens to create that imaging of whatever it is you want beyond nature. I think about some of the cruise ships now are starting to put those in on the internal cabins as well, right?
Exactly, and it used to be those were the last cabins to sell.
Right.
As a matter of fact, if you take a look at what Disney's done with their internal facing cabins, they don't have windows or portals, I guess.
Right.
Instead, they have these round screens, and what they've done is they've programmed Nemo to come swimming by on that screen. Yep. And the kids actually find that much more fascinating than just the boring view of the ocean outside. So that's part of what we're envisioning too, is content, Glenn, how to create compelling content on those screens in the environment, use audio to depict what you would find in nature, which is sound coming from multiple directions, enhance the air quality within our hotels, which is increasingly important. And lastly, be able to tell someone in the space how clean the air is, right? We're often, at a loss as to, is the air quality actually clean? So we are incorporating actually displays. We just did a hotel in Minneapolis, the beautiful Rand Tower Hotel up there that we actually helped co-develop. And we have sensors and display screens in the meeting spaces that show the air quality, the ratings of the air quality. So, so there's a lot to start to think about as it relates to the future, Glenn, and how to incorporate some of these ideas into our future hotels.
Then let's pair that up with what you've been saying into the practicality of trying to sell rooms, food, drink, experiences, right? So what you're really talking about is being able to create different moods at different day parts with nature and technology that will get people to want to interact with the environments more, therefore hopefully engaging them to want to stay or at least hang out and be social and create experiences on their own that you've set up for them through buying those food and drinks. Yes?
Absolutely. That's exactly it, Glenn. And in the image behind you, there were people working in that space. If given a choice, and I was on a call with a sponsor for the Hotel Tomorrow project in Hong Kong earlier this morning. She was telling me it's a 21-day period of isolation in order to transition in or out of Hong Kong right now to the States. And she had just spent 14 days with her family in an albeit beautiful hotel, but in a hotel room for 14 days. And it felt like a beautiful prison, because how do you take people out of their guest room environment, whether they're there now to work effectively and to relax and rest, and put them into the public areas. To your point, Glenn, we need to generate revenue in the public areas of hotels. And the concept that was being shown behind you really could work in pre-function areas. It could work in underutilized meeting spaces. It could be in lobby spaces. But what draws someone to an otherwise vacant lobby space? It's a challenging question. And the answer isn't just good coffee. Or the promise of service. I think there has to be a reason to draw you there to work or to to socialize. And design is, as one of my friends said recently, design and story has never been more important in the hotel industry. And I think he's right. And gratefully, we've built an entire business around branding and design. But that is one way to do it, is treat the public areas of hotels as a compelling place to be, and maybe even a place that helps calm you if you've now gone through the rigors of travel with masks on and security and all of those various things that just make travel difficult these days.
So let's talk about another image that you have here on hotel-of-tomorrow.com. I love this notion because it's bringing in that nature. It's bringing in great forward-thinking design and making that bar area in the center really a focal point to help drive those sales.
Yeah, so this was a concept that we called the Robot Alliance, and this contemplates the idea of how to expand your food and beverage operations beyond the constraints of a restaurant or a bar that might be tucked away in a hotel.
Right.
And what we realized when we looked at it, Glenn, was why is it that you could either decrease the amount of seating in your restaurant by 50%, right, in order to have safe social distancing, or you could increase the footprint of your restaurant by 100%, which is what we did in this solution here. And the reason people don't service areas of the hotel that are further away from the bar or the restaurant is drinks get warm, food gets cold, things spill. And so could we solve that problem by relying upon robots or autonomous little vehicles that are hot boxes or cold boxes to be able to deliver the food and drinks for you? And it really could also be a delivery mechanism for outdoor dining as well. The large format robots, we could integrate LCD screens to make them into televisions that hang out with you. They not only deliver your drinks and act like a fridge, but they can hang out with you during the game and be your source of large screen entertainment.
That's pretty cool. Will they pick up the tab at the end of the night? That's really good. Just kidding. But I love what you're saying there about robots, because in this particular avenue, it's being used to accentuate guest service as opposed to taking away a labor position specifically. And it's interesting because a lot of these inventions, I'm thinking it's like the robot is there just to distract you. It doesn't necessarily have a practical purpose. But here, you're creating not just a reason for it to exist, but a potential point of engagement with the guests as well.
Thanks for bringing that up, Glenn, because I think what we did was, and the reason it's called a Robot Alliance, is that there are multiple robots within the environment. We see a future where you have robots that serve different purposes in hotel environments. Some of them might specialize in making drinks. Others might be specializing in delivering drinks. There's a small orange robot that's like a mini fridge that has a robot personality similar to the animal or character Doug in the movie Up. That it is highly conversational. It wants to hang out with you. It doesn't just deliver your drinks. It asks you questions. It can communicate with the other robots very much like Star Wars, with kind of clicks and beeps and things like that. And so what you would hear within the environment is a drone that you could communicate with by placing an order with the drone. The drone communicates back to the bartender or to the kitchen. The food is delivered, communicated to these rolling robots. So we see a relationship between the robots that form not only relationship communication between them, but between them and guests. So you could have real-time language translation and things like this. But I want to make a point about Hotel of Tomorrow, if I can, Glenn. This isn't about like predicting sci-fi future fantasies for our industry, although it sounds like it when I talk about robots. It really is about what are the things that are happening now around the world that are likely to change the guest experience and the guest expectations. And I think that a guest who experiences something in a retail environment, a hospital environment, a higher education environment, a transportation environment are going to come with those expectations to hotels. And the hotel is then going to have to deliver against those changing guest expectations. It might be air quality, it might be visual stimulation, it might be service delivery on demand, it might be voice activation or motion activation, it might be real-time readouts of the safety, security, cleanliness of an environment. It might be biophilic design and sustainability and the position that a hotel takes on sustainability, or diversity and inclusion. All of those things that are changing the guest expectations have to impact what we deliver in hospitality, and we need to start doing it tomorrow. And I don't mean future tomorrow, you know, in some science. Tomorrow. Literally tomorrow. So,
right.
So we do have, you know, really beautiful images and research to support where we think things are going in 5, 10, 15 years. But it really is more about what are the changing expectations today, and how do we think about that?
So how do you think about it then? Because most futurists, at least historically speaking, have created that, you know, either the Blade Runner type future or the Star Trek type future, without any real consideration of how we're living our lives today, tomorrow, and next year. It always seems to be so far in the future that it's extremely disconnected than how we live our lives today. So how do you take that? How do you create a bridge between how we're living now to where you think people should actually be going when it comes to creating amazing hotel designs and experiences?
Yeah, well, that is really both art and science. And part of the answer is we surround ourselves with a whole bunch of really smart people who are asking themselves the same question.
Which explains why I'm not part of this group. Thank you.
You are right now, Glenn. Thank you. Because these technology companies who are our partners, people like NVIDIA, they're looking at the future, and Facebook Oculus, for example, who are also sponsors of Hotel Tomorrow, they're looking at the future, and they're saying, how are we going to reinvent what meetings look like, or what virtual operations look like, or augmented reality within hotel environments? So we're bringing some expertise that'll tell us where things are going. It's a big bet. They're making a big bet on the future, and so we have to hear what they have to say. So part of my answer is we surround ourselves with people looking at the future. But part of my other part of my answer, Glenn, is you look at the shifting needs of guests today and some of the available kind of leading innovations happening today, and you try to predict where they might go in the future. I'll give you an example. One of the things that we shared with the public coming out of last year is called BedXYZ. And it is a sleep platform that monitors the quality of your sleep and allows you to gamify or to control a whole bunch of elements of your sleep environment to try to get a higher sleep score on your next night. That's it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And so there's lots of technologies that have been incorporated into this, but the basic important part of this is we are learning how valuable sleep is to the quality of our life, the quality of our thinking, the quality of our mental well-being, and our physical well-being. So what can we start doing? That's not going to change. I mean, that's not going away. We're still going to need to sleep in the future, is my prediction, Glenn. I'm going way out on a limb here.
It's very risky to be breaking such news on the Hotel Design Podcast right now.
But with that in mind, how do we make sure that the quality of sleep that we are achieving is as good as it can be? And there are so many variables, from temperature to soundscape to light levels to firmness of the bed to the rituals you follow before sleep to how you wake up. All of these things affect the quality of your sleep, and we now can easily monitor brain activity, breathing activity, level, depth of sleep. All of those things are easy to achieve. We're just bundling it together into one sleep solution. So the answer to your long-winded answer to your question, Glenn, is how do we know where things are going? Well, we look at what is happening now, and we predict how it might continue to be innovated in the future.
So that's interesting that you predict to see how it might, innovate in the future. So you put together this whole group of people that have a lot of lively ideas, but then how do you tie it back to actually having like a strong ROI for the investor, the developer, the operator, the owner, to really get them to understand that we all need to move forward together in order to bring these things to life?
So last year we took the ideas that we came up with, the top 5 ideas, and we went out to 70,000 travelers and asked them, if this was in your hotel room, would you pay more for that experience? Would you
Right.
choose a hotel that has that bed over another one that doesn't have that bed?
Right.
Who would you think that this idea would appeal to most in terms of demographic, et cetera? And we were able to harvest that data and bring that back. And by the way, the bed happened to be the highest rating in terms of people's preference to impact their buy decision. They would choose a hotel that had it and they would pay more for it. So if that is true, and again, it's only 70,000 travelers, but if that is true, how do we start thinking differently about the sleep environment in our hotels? Even if it's a small incremental change you could start making tomorrow, what can you start doing to prioritize beyond what what's there presently? And there's been a lot of good innovation in guest rooms around sleep, but there's still plenty of room to grow in that area.
There is. Now, I would like to say the mattress companies have done a great job at improving their product, and ever since the Heavenly Bed really came on the scene in the late '90s, kind of reinvented how beds are. But we haven't seen a lot of changes since then. I hear a lot of complaints that it's either too hot, the bed's too hot, or the bed's too cold, right? There's too much light coming into the room. There's too much noise in the room. So what you're really talking about is taking each of these pain points, thinking about them in a meaningful way, and then finding solutions to accentuate the overall guest room experience.
Exactly, Glenn. And that's why part of the Hotel of Tomorrow includes manufacturers of the products that go into hotel
Right.
guest rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Because your sponsor, for
Yep.
example,
Porcelanosa.
Porcelanosa, they're an incredibly innovative company, and
Mm-hmm.
they are thinking about cleanliness. And by the way, part of the ability to get a good night's sleep is knowing that you're safe and clean.
Right.
And so, as companies are thinking about the products that they are making and how they're engineering them, how they can incorporate antimicrobial, antiviral finishes, how they can incorporate additional sound attenuation
Mhm.
technologies into their flooring or into their wall coverings, or the carbon footprint. People feel guilty now, and this is a trend that isn't going to go away, Glenn.
Right.
People are going to know more about the carbon footprint that they are leaving behind by traveling, whether it's the airline ticket they purchased or it's the amount of water, energy, or food they've consumed
Right.
in a hotel. So that is going to continue to impact people's decision as to where they stay, and meaning the negative impact that they're having. They also are going to, I believe, focus on the positive impact that they could have. Are they supporting a restaurant who is buying products from a local maker that has a track record of supporting those in need, or whatever that might be? Or
Understood.
are they staying at a hotel with a commitment to diversity and inclusion? People are going to be voting with more knowledge and voting with their dollars as to where
Mhm.
they stay and what they do. And this is also part of the Hotel of Tomorrow project as well,
And
Glenn.
this is an important issue, Ron, I think, for people to really understand. We're a little bit older. We grew up in a different type of universe, but I see it with younger millennials, and I definitely see it with Generation Z, who's entering the workforce now, is in college. That matters more to them. Social justice, diversity, inclusion, the environment. These are all issues that come first to them. So it's incumbent also, I think, as part of this group, to people understand that just because we may be set in a particular way of thinking, that if you want to continue to be profitable and have success in the future, you really need to understand what future generations that are going to be spending real money, how they want to have the experiences.
Exactly, Glenn, which is why this year the Hotel of Tomorrow project doesn't just include some universities who have participated historically. These are international universities. This is Cornell University. This is Haaga-Helia in Finland. It's Breda University in the Netherlands. It's Institut Public in Lyon, France. It's Hotel School The Hague in Amsterdam. But we have their professors, but we also are bringing students this year. So we've created a Hot Scholars program, and the Hot Scholars program is 30 handpicked students that are getting advanced degrees at these universities to participate in what's called the Hot Ed Challenge. And what they're doing is taking the biggest issues that our sponsor companies are facing, and the students are working on their solutions. So to your point, Glenn, you're going to get the Gen Z and millennial perspective on how important sustainability in the environment is, diversity, inclusion, and social justice is, responsible sourcing and supporting local neighborhoods. Those things that there may not appear to be an initial return on investment. It may not be you are going to save money on the cost of your X by buying it through this resource. However, it will affect your occupancy and your rate, because you're going to have guests who are going to make decisions in the future where those issues are much more kind of prevalent in their minds as they're making the buy decision.
So the hardest issue with the hotel of tomorrow, I don't think, is the technology and all of that. It's changing investors' minds, right? So how do you and this group and the suppliers that are all part of it work together to try to get owners to understand that what you're doing, it may cost some money, but it's for their benefit in the end?
Well, that is an uphill battle, quite honestly, Glenn. Yeah. We are in a business that has struggled over the course of the pandemic, obviously. Our industry is funded typically by conservative capital. However, we're not acting alone here. Hilton and Marriott are both sponsors, and we're in discussions now with IHG, Accor, and Hyatt to join us as well. And if we can get the brands who are constantly innovating, I mean, think about it. Even they have to constantly modify and enhance their existing brands and inevitably develop new brands. These are the issues that they should be paying attention to. And if a brand says this is the standard going forward, there's going to be a responsibility of those involved to adhere to those standards. I'll give you one example. One of our sponsors is a company called MindClick. It's an amazing company that tracks the carbon footprint of every object, every piece of furniture and finish that go into a hotel to measure its environmental impact.
Right. And what you mean by that is at the factory, how it's created and shipped and all that.
Exactly. And so what Marriott is doing, they're developing a program with MindClick that says, if you want to be approved as a Marriott standard provider for this brand, you must have a score within this acceptable range. So the brand is saying, the brand is going to lead here, Glenn. And it won't just be the brand alone. It will be the conscientious developer who wants a LEED platinum rating on their building.
I'm just thinking like Barry Sternlicht and the One Hotels brand.
Exactly. Great example. Sure. Right. So how can we, and a shout out, by the way, to our friends in the independent world. I happen to be on the board of the ILC, the Independent Lodging Congress, and I've learned a lot from what the independents are doing. The independents they're courageously taking a stand on some issues that perhaps the brands, because of their scale, haven't yet committed to yet. And there's inspiration to be found from the small independent hotels as well.
Right. I love that you're saying the big brands are getting involved, because one of the biggest challenges I think we all have as an industry going forward is getting the least engaged hotel owners to make that commitment for the investment and for the future. So sometimes we need that yin, the yang, the push, the pull, all of that kind of stuff with smart independent developers, followed by the brands, to try to get everybody on the same page there, right?
Yeah, well, we're coming full circle here, Glenn. Yeah. It takes a commitment at the entire industry level, and it takes a view from outside of our industry for these large tech companies who are saying, hospitality can get left behind here if you aren't integrating some of the solutions that other big businesses and verticals are incorporating into their work environments or their developments or their brand standards. So honestly, I feel like if we ever have to suffer through another unexpected pandemic or something that changes our industry dramatically overnight, I think we need to be better prepared. And I think we were not particularly well prepared as an industry for this pandemic. And I hope that we can plan for more flexibility and more malleability in the future.
I hope so, but I'm still waiting for more outlets near where I am in my room. So until we get past that, might be a little bit too much to bite off. But Ron, you're really making some great points here. So when you're thinking about getting us to the future, what are the one or two practical things that you think could be those first baby steps in that direction that hoteliers could think about now, that hoteliers could do now, that hoteliers could win the hearts and minds of travelers right now by doing?
Well, we track what we think are the 6 most kind of pressing issues for the world, but for our industry going forward. And we're constantly looking for sources of inspiration from outside of our industry. I think our industry could learn a lot by reading publications and online sources and listening to podcasts that cover industries other than hospitality, because there is a lot of inspiration that is coming from outside, and some of it are obviously having an effect on our industry. I'll tell you a quick example. So one of our sponsors is Jones Lang LaSalle. Jones Lang LaSalle has done a terrific job of focusing on how to make their office environments feel more like hospitality environments, with clubs and gyms and food and beverage and co-working spaces in addition to the office spaces. So what are they doing? They're looking outside of traditional office to hospitality, and they're saying, what are the key lessons that they should learn? Well, the same is true in reverse. Hospitality should be paying attention to office and healthcare and higher ed, et cetera. And again, you're looking at the same consumer, the same guest, the same consumer who is staying with you, just experienced a great new retail experience or something, and they come with those expectations. So my advice to those in our industry would be, look beyond the bounds of your own industry, of your own hotel, of your own sector. Because if you are an upper mid-scale or an upper upscale hotel, pay attention to what's happening in economy or luxury. If you're at luxury, pay attention to other sectors, because those same guests are saving up to stay with you, or they're trading down to stay with you. And they'll come with expectations, whether it's around your environmental policies or your hiring practices or whatever it is. I think we all have to have our eyes a little bit more wide open than we did before, because the world isn't slowing down. It feels like it's accelerating. And
I was really hoping it would slow down for a bit, but no, we are back at it, even more so than ever. Speaking about racing around, one thing I would like to add is I love this idea, the hotel rover concept over here. I've seen some people trying to get some notions of this, but I love it because I'm a fan of like going to music festivals and all of that kind of stuff. And I like the idea that you could have pop-up hotels wherever those music festivals are, food and wine festivals, whatever it might be. You could really extend where hospitality can take place. Is that kind of what you all were thinking about with that particular?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Glenn. There's a twist to this that is worth pointing out. The twist is that the hospitality industry has never been in the RV business, okay, as far as I know. And if you could, and this was an idea, by the way, born out of a design competition we ran in France last summer. Cool. It was a student group who came up with the idea that the RV could be serviced, could be picked up at the hotel. So that's where you go to pick up your vehicle, right? And you could stop at any of the affiliated hotels along the way to get housekeeping, to get room service, to use the pool and the amenities of the hotel. And so you could extend hospitality beyond the walls of the building. So yes, this is an autonomous vehicle with solar panels on the roof and all kinds of cool functionality, but ultimately, I think we've all learned, and look at what's happened to hotel occupancies near our national parks here in the U.S. By the way, all these drive-to destinations. So we're trying to capitalize on that as well. Like, how do we take hospitality on the road with us a little bit? And the trend there, interestingly, is take a look at what's happened with ghost kitchens producing food outside of city centers for restaurants that are located in city centers in order to expand their footprint, right? So we're seeing this kind of, whether it's that example or it's the robots extending the service area in hotels or it's this rover idea, there's going to be the ability to expand hospitality beyond the walls of a hotel. And this was just a solution to be able to do that.
So last question I have for you, Ron, how do you make sure that with all of these ideas, you keep the humanity in hospitality and we don't just become a sterile technology future where all we do is interact with screens and robots?
Well, ultimately, I don't know. I think that there's always going to be a promise in the hospitality industry that we're doing more than providing a safe, clean place to sleep. That we are extending humanity and care for the people who choose to stay with us. That's not going to go away. I think that the experience can be supplemented by technology, not replaced by technology. And that even the training that that people can go through can be supported by technology. I'll tell you a brief story of an experiment that was just run by Hilton and Facebook. The belief was that the executives at Hilton did not understand the difficulty and complexity of the job being done at the property level, whether it was cleaning a guest room or it was setting up a room service tray. And so they used virtual reality as a training tool for empathy, so that the executives had to put on the VR headsets and go through a simulation to understand how hard it is to clean a guest room without them having to do it themselves. One of the cool things about technology is it can extend empathy, it can teach empathy, it can train people in their job, but it could also let other people understand how difficult it is to do the job that they're doing and therefore have more appreciation for them in that job. So there will be an increasing role for technology. It can supplement the ability to provide even better service on property. Let's hope it doesn't replace too many jobs, but it helps people do an even better job than they've been doing.
Well, I'm hoping that as we are going through a great employment shift in our society right now, right? There's still people and they're still working. They're just finding jobs in other places. That we can bring together technology and humanity to take away some of those back of house jobs that were very labor intensive, take that away from the human being and allow that person to concentrate on creating amazing memories for their guests. Ron, any final thoughts before we go? And how do we get involved in the hotel tomorrow?
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, two things. One, we this year, in order to, and we're about to launch the hotel tomorrow for, we have sponsors involved, but we don't have what we call members involved yet. If you want to join us, go to hotel-of-tomorrow.com and you can join us through the website and purchase tickets to participate in what will be an amazing series of events. There will be 4 events. They'll all be first quarter next year, Glenn. And they are in a combination of virtual reality and via Zoom. We will not be meeting in person this year. The virtual reality experience is a truly remarkable experiment that we are running with Facebook, Oculus, NVIDIA, and others. And we've built an airship. We have built a place for people to come together in virtual reality using an application called AltSpace, which is a Microsoft product. And we will show up as avatars to hear some incredible speakers. And then we will break out from those, from that environment into small discussion groups via Zoom and then back into VR. It's an experiment, I say, because this hasn't been done before. Number one, there is no other hospitality think tank that's focused on the future that includes so many people from inside and outside the industry. And number two, no one has tried doing this in virtual reality, and let's keep our fingers crossed that it works. So far, so good. but it really will be a remarkable experience. So that's how people can get involved. If they want to join us, we would welcome them. Thank you for posting that, Glenn. And look forward to having your participation there as well. So we can talk offline about how we can make all that happen.
We can, but I'm not coming in person. I'm coming as a 2-pack hologram. You okay with that?
You can come as anyone you like. You can dress your avatar any way you like, Glenn. That's up to you.
I love it. Ron Swidler, thank you so much for being here and giving us insight into what people can expect in the future of hospitality. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Another episode of the Hotel Design Podcast. Remember, we learned today about utilizing great technology to enhancing guest experiences, getting them to spend more money, and keeping them engaged in the hospitality process. Now, remember, you don't want to use technology to supplement the human experience and those connections, because that's what we remember when we go home. We don't go, oh, that was a great computer that they had in the hotel, or that was a fun robot. We remember the people, the humanity, the emotions that we feel based on all of that. So I look forward to participating in the hotel of tomorrow. And I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank Ron for being such a great guest. We'll see you next time on the Hotel Design Podcast. Take care.